Give us one that you're pretty confident about. Give us one that you would say, if I were to change one thing about our educational system, this is the one thing I can confidently speak on.
Broadly, and the way I would change the science is another thing, but let me say broadly, I would say that I would de-emphasize the value the educational system places on what grades you got.
Yeah.
And figure out ways to assess, or rather to promote or to nurture your enthusiasm for learning. And because of this, what happens? There are people who get high grades. These are the people who pay attention in class and all their homeworks are handed in on time, and they might become valedictorian. And however, if you look at the biggest shakers and movers in society, in practically any field, none of them were valedictorians. The most, if you've read a lot of business, you know CEOs were never the top of their class, or entrepreneurs were never the top of their class. They were too distracted by other thoughts and ideas. And look at Richard Branson, who his headmaster said, you'll either be in prison or be a millionaire.
That's right.
And he ended up a billionaire.
That's right.
Because he was not following these educational rules about what would enable a teacher to judge that you will go far. And my grades in school were pretty average. Because they were average, no teacher at any time in my life, K through 12, 16, and 20, okay, would have ever said, see that guy Tyson? Watch him, he'll go far. None of them. Even though I was all into the university.
No one said that.
No one would have said that had you asked. Had you walked into the classroom and I'm in the class and asked the teacher, who's going to go far in this class? I would have never shown up on their list.
I love that.
Any teacher.
Yeah.
Yet, it's not like I was a late bloomer. I've known I was interested in the universe since I was 9. And at age 11, you asked me what I want to be when I grow up, that annoying question adults always ask kids. I said, I want to be an astrophysicist. And I was in the astronomy club. And I walked dogs and used that money, walked other people's dogs, used that money to buy my first telescope at age 14. And I had cameras. I had a dark room. Who knows what a dark room is anymore? But that's why I produced all my photography. All of this was going on, and it doesn't show up on a grade in my school. And so the teacher doesn't see that. They don't know it. They don't even care. They just care what grades you got.
Yep.
And so here I am growing myself and had this whole library of books. My parents would buy remaindered books. They cost 50 cents. They didn't know any science, but if they saw a science book or a math book, they bought it for. I had the biggest library of any middle schooler there ever was. Okay? So all of this is going on. And in high school, I went on an expedition to Scotland to view the stone monuments that are similar to Stonehenge, but many are not charted. And I was on an expedition to chart them. I was the astronomer brought in with archaeologists and anthropologists. All this is happening. I spent a summer in an astronomy camp living nocturnally in the desert, in the Mojave Desert, while I was in high school. None of that shows up as a grade. And all I'm saying is, a person is so much more than the numerics of their GPA, that if you only focus on a GPA, you will lose people. There'll be people who will go unrecognized, unsupported, unidentified in the school system.
How do we grade the other part, though? How do we grade?
That's the challenge.
Yeah.
I don't know how you would now try to encode ambition or drive. These are a little more passion, especially. These are a little more abstract. And maybe the school, rather than judging you whether you have passion, they should find ways to instill passion within you. And then you're graded by how much more passion you had after the class than you did before, rather than how much you walked in there with.
Well, let me ask you this. So here's the other question. So for me, having ran a sales organization for 20-some years, I'll see somebody come in, and I used to say, man, that guy's a great talker. He's going to do great in sales. 1 month later, he quits. And he goes to the next and the next. And you'll see another guy like, my intuition.
That just means you suck at evaluating people.
But I did. You're right. But you're right.
No, I'm just
no. But Neil, the point
he's trying to clown you, but he's like, no, you're right.
I agree with you. Okay. As a newer sales leader, I did. Then when I learned, we built a 40,000 insurance agency company nationwide, and I'm the founder of it. So I learned how to lock onto the right people. Here's a question for you. So what should be the key indicator, maybe 2 or 3 indicators to say, this 16-year-old kid, this 14-year-old kid, this 17-year-old kid could one day do something very big in their lives, or is it too early to tell?
It could surely be too early to tell, which is why you always want to present opportunities to people throughout their lives to see if they'll jump on them, modify them, make them fit their lives. All I will say is, when assessing the promise and performance of a student, you need to look at more than their GPA. I don't mind standardized exams. I don't mind, you want to give somebody an IQ test. I don't have a problem with any test. But the moment you administer a test and then use that against the person because they didn't score high enough on this test above some threshold that you have a cut off, and only then do you give them opportunities, this is using educational systems and tools against the progress of students rather than for them. When I was in 6th grade, that was still contained in an elementary school, I was not in what they called the smartest class because they were identified by the system, and they took French. They took a foreign language. And I said, well, why can't I take a foreign? Well, you don't belong in that class, okay? You got to go in the 2nd class. And they were given opportunities that I really wanted to have. And I was denied it because some educational construct declared that I was unworthy of it. And so that I've been thinking about that ever since because I was already ambitious as a kid.
I don't, this isn't a pushback, but it's like Pat was a 1.8 GPA student, and your subject was math, right? Like if you could have just dedicated all your time to math.
I would do math with you, made me do it or not.
I don't know what kind of grades you got. Sometimes somebody tells me you did okay, but
no, I got a mixture of A's, B's, and C's,
right,
which averaged to B.
I guess my point is like, but it all worked out okay. Meaning, like, you're the most famous astrophysicist in the world. It worked out. So, Pat was horrible at everything else. He's amazing at business, math. It worked out. I was always like an actor, thespian. Here I am. So it worked out.
No. It's not just it worked out. No. Somewhere in there, you are standing up after you've been knocked down multiple times. That's not just it worked out. That's where your drive is, your grit, your ambition, your capacity to recover from any forces operating against your all of this. So it's not just it worked out. Right. I'm where I am not because of my educational past, but in spite of it.
Got it.
Is my point.
So you're saying the school system should do a better job identifying what you're super, super, super passionate about and let you double down on that versus useless classes?
No, that's being more specific than I'm prepared to land at this moment.
Yeah.
But what a school should say is, don't reserve all your highest praises for the people who get the highest grades. Do some other searching in the total life of the person. Suppose there's someone who in middle school or high school is taking care of their younger kid, babysitting, walking dogs, doing this, shopping, and figured out a way to make that efficient and created a budget for the family because they couldn't.
Wow.
Figure that. Look what that is. Oh my gosh, the person is figuring out life. And no one was there to train them. That's ambition. That's some of it is the what do you call it? The necessity is the mother of invention. Or in order to survive, you got to get clever. Okay, but these are tests of us throughout our lives. If you're a deadbeat sitting at home watching TV and you don't have good grades, I got nothing for you at that point. But take a look at the total package, because in life, the total package is what's going to matter.
Okay, so let me ask you a question.
I have teacher comment. Well, this is going to show up in this education book. I have teacher comment. I still have my report cards. Neil should less social involvement and more academic diligence is in order. What they're saying is my social energy was a negative in that classroom. By the way, I wasn't purposefully disruptive. It was more a gurgling of energy, okay? That was a negative. And
meaning you would socialize with other students, you were talkative, you were energetic.
Talkative, I'd pass notes and things.
Yeah.
That was bad. Rather than saying, there could be some value to this later on. he might become a communicator because he's communicating with all these people at all these different times. No one is thinking that. Right. All they can see is the grade in their class. That's why none of the teachers would have said, look at him. He'll go far.
Neil, in your class, by the way, I asked this question about 2 months ago, and it was incredible hearing the answer. What does the valedictorian of your high school do for work today? Did they meet and exceed the expectation? If I tell you 95% of the responses was no.
Yeah, of course.
It was all no. It was such a but going back.
By the way, that's not true for my valedictorian. But
who was yours? What did he do? What did he or she do?
He was co-founded Regeneron.
Okay, that's very successful.
The biomed company?
Yeah, the biomed company. He was my valedictorian my year from the Bronx High School
that
of
is
Science.
Insane to say who he is.
What number did you finish?
This is the Bronx High School of Science. There were about 700 graduates. They don't number it below 10, but I was probably 300th, 350th.
Got it.
Out of
who else was very successful in your school outside of him?
He and I have our names on the school wall. I have to think about.
Okay, so then that means you would own. So did you see any signs of genius or something different about him where you said this guy could do something in his life, or no?
At the time,
yeah,
he was very ambitious. I mean, he did science fair projects, which again are extra
curricular, additional on top of
the grade for the thing. And here's something interesting he did, because he competed, I think if I remember correctly, competed in the famous Westinghouse Science Talent Search and did very well in that. When he became Regeneron, that Science Talent Search has changed, quote, ownerships over the years, and now there's the Regeneron Prize out of the monies that they have invested in it.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, if you're just looking at grades, that's the person who is trying to impress you. Here's the measure. I got it for you. Ready? If you got a 97 on your exam instead of 100, are you going to complain to your teacher? Are you going to complain if it's like hand graded? And are you going to complain? You say, okay, it's 97, it's just as good as 100. I don't care. If you're going to complain, that means you're after the grade more than you're after learning. And at some level, valedictorians are after the grades. And that ask anyone who's 30 and older in this world, when was the last time someone wanted to know your GPA? They won't even be able to remember. It never comes up at work. It's, are you honest? Are you moral? Are you a hard worker? Do you solve problems? Whole sets of qualifications that are not encoded in your GPA.
Or SAT score or ACT score, anything like that.
Same difference.
So how important are extracurricular activities? Meaning, like, you might have been a B student, but you're captain of the debate team, or you're on the football team, or the wrestling team.
I was captain of my wrestling
team.
Oh,
were you really?
Yeah.
Okay, so
and undefeated, by the way, in high school.
What?
But
that's
the
breaking
high school
news right
was
there.
not in Iowa. Okay, just to be clear.
Gotcha.
There are places where wrestling is a religion, and I was undefeated in a place where wrestling is not a religion.
So going back.
Yeah, so I had these extra things. That was the rest of my life. I did fun things. I did things that not only were activities, they were activities that further grew my knowledge and awareness of fields.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.